Most people believe that when progress slows, the answer is simple: push harder, train longer, add more pressure. But what they don't realize is that this instinct often works against them. The harder they force results, the more rigid they become. Movements lose precision. Decisions lose clarity. Strength turns into strain. And without noticing it, they step into a state where they are easier to read, easier to rush, and easier to break. This is exactly where Bruce Lee separated himself from everyone else. Instead of escalating effort blindly, he questioned something far more dangerous: the relationship between pressure and awareness. He understood that limits do not appear because an opponent is stronger, faster, or more skilled. Limits appear when the mind tightens against the situation. When resistance forms inside, power leaks out. Once he recognized this, conflict stopped feeling chaotic. Pressure stopped feeling threatening. What once seemed overwhelming began to expose patterns, openings, and weaknesses. Not in others, but in the moment itself. From that point on, opposition was no longer something to fight. It became something to read. Long before any physical exchange begins, something far more important is already taking place inside the mind. This internal activity is quiet, fast, and often completely unnoticed. Thoughts begin to race ahead of the present moment. The mind imagines what might happen next. Expectations start to form about success, failure, danger, or embarrassment. Fear introduces possibilities that have not yet occurred. Ego steps in and demands control, recognition, or dominance. None of this is visible from the outside, but it immediately shapes how the body responds. This internal struggle creates tension before movement even starts. Muscles tighten without necessity. Breathing becomes shallow. Awareness narrows. Instead of being fully present, attention is pulled in multiple directions at once. Part of the mind watches the situation, another part worries about the outcome, and another part tries to protect identity or pride. This division happens so quickly that most people mistake it for readiness, when in reality it is fragmentation. Bruce Lee paid close attention to this process. He noticed that people often blamed their losses on lack of speed, lack of strength, or lack of technique. But when he observed carefully, he saw something else. Even skilled individuals failed when pressure appeared, not because they suddenly forgot what they knew, but because their attention collapsed inward. Their mind stopped serving the moment and started fighting itself. When attention is divided, action loses clarity. One part of the body moves while another hesitates. One impulse pushes forward while another pulls back. This creates inefficiency. Movements feel heavier than they should. Timing becomes inconsistent. Decisions arrive late or too early. The body is strong, but strength is scattered. This is why even highly trained individuals can appear clumsy under pressure. Bruce Lee understood that this inner split is exhausting. Fighting externally already demands energy, but fighting internally drains far more. Worry consumes focus. Proving oneself consumes awareness. Resisting the moment consumes calm. By the time action is required, much of the available energy has already been wasted on internal conflict. The body is left to operate with what remains. This internal battle is difficult to notice because it feels normal. Most people live in a constant state of inner noise. They are used to thinking ahead, judging themselves, and preparing emotionally for outcomes. They assume this is part of being alert. Bruce Lee saw that it was the opposite. True alertness requires attention to be unified, not scattered. As long as the internal struggle continues, no technique can function at full capacity. Techniques depend on timing, sensitivity, and coordination. These qualities require a clear channel between perception and action. When the mind is divided, that channel becomes blocked. Signals arrive late. Responses are distorted. Precision disappears. Bruce Lee realized that removing this internal struggle was more important than adding new techniques. A simple movement performed with unified attention is more effective than a complex technique performed with doubt or tension. This understanding shifted how he focused from external accumulation to internal alignment. He also recognized that this invisible battle does not only appear in fighting. It shows up in arguments, competition, decision-making, and high-pressure moments in everyday life. Whenever someone feels rushed, defensive, or overwhelmed, the same inner division is at work. The mind is no longer serving the moment. It is reacting to imagined futures, or past experiences. Bruce Lee trained himself to notice this division as soon as it appeared. Awareness was his first tool. By seeing the internal struggle clearly, he prevented it from taking control. Instead of trying to overpower fear or ego, he observed them without attachment. This observation weakened their influence naturally. This practice unified his attention. When he acted fully. There was no internal argument, no need to prove anything, no resistance to what was happening. His body and mind moved as one system rather than competing parts. This unity made his actions appear effortless, even under pressure. Most people never address this invisible battle. They train harder, push more, and blame external factors when results fall short. Bruce Lee took the opposite approach. He refined the internal condition first. By doing so, he removed the hidden weakness that undermines performance from the inside. The invisible battle is the one most people lose, not because it is impossible to win, but because they never realize it is happening. Bruce Lee realized it early. And once he did, he stopped wasting energy fighting himself. That decision alone changed everything that followed. The single shift that changed everything for Bruce Lee was learning how to remain fully aligned with the moment he was in, rather than fighting against it internally. This may sound simple, but it is one of the hardest disciplines to master. Most people live in constant resistance without realizing it. They resist uncertainty. They resist pressure. They resist not knowing what will happen next. That resistance quietly drains energy and clouds judgment. Bruce Lee began to notice how resistance formed inside the mind. It appeared as the urge to control outcomes, to force situations toward a preferred result. It appeared as inner arguments about what should be happening instead of what was happening. It appeared as mental rehearsals for reactions that were not yet required. All of this activity pulled attention away from the present moment. Once he saw this clearly, he made a decisive change. He stopped trying to control what had not yet occurred. He stopped negotiating with reality in his own head. He stopped preparing responses to imagined futures. This did not mean he became careless or passive. It meant he became exact. Alignment replaced resistance. Instead of pushing against the moment, he entered it fully. His attention stayed where his body was, not where fear projected it to be. When the mind stopped pulling forward or backward, awareness became steady. This steadiness created clarity. Clarity does not shout, it simplifies. With clarity, there is no need to rush decisions because the right response becomes visible. There is no need to overthink because the situation reveals what it requires. Bruce Lee discovered that when he stayed aligned, action emerged naturally at the correct time. He did not have to force it. This alignment unified his attention. Nothing competed for focus. There was no internal commentary running in the background. No self-judgment. No anticipation. His mind was not split between acting and observing. It did one thing at a time, completely. That wholeness made his responses efficient and direct. Many people misunderstand this state and assume it is passive. In reality, it is highly active. Alignment requires awareness, sensitivity, and discipline. It demands letting go of the urge to interfere mentally. This takes courage because it removes the illusion of control. But in exchange, it provides something far more reliable: responsiveness. By staying aligned, Bruce Lee conserved energy. Instead of spending mental effort worrying about outcomes, he preserved that energy for action itself. His movements carried weight because nothing inside him resisted them. His timing improved because he was not distracted by internal noise. His adaptability increased because he was not locked into preconceived plans. This became his greatest advantage. Opponents often relied on pressure to disrupt others. They tried to provoke reactions, create urgency, or force mistakes, but alignment made him difficult to disturb. Pressure had nowhere to attach itself. When others tried to speed him up, he did not follow. When others tried to intimidate him, he did not respond emotionally. His state remained unchanged. This alignment reshaped how he moved through challenges. He no longer experienced moments as obstacles to overcome, but as conditions to work within. This shift removed unnecessary struggle. The action felt clean. Decisions felt grounded. Even under stress, his attention stayed whole. Most people never make this shift because they mistake resistance for readiness. They believe thinking ahead protects them. They believe forcing outcomes creates control. Bruce Lee learned the opposite. He learned that the more aligned you are with the present moment, the less you need to control anything else. This understanding changed everything. Once alignment replaced resistance, his actions stopped leaking energy. His presence became steady. His effectiveness increased without additional effort. What looked like dominance from the outside was actually coherence on the inside. The one thing he learned was not a technique, a trick, or a secret move. It was a way of relating to reality without internal conflict. And once that conflict disappeared, nothing external could easily disrupt him. Force gives the illusion of power, but it always comes at a cost. Whenever force is used, energy leaks in multiple directions at once. The mind pushes, the body resists, and tension spreads where it is not needed. What looks powerful on the surface often hides inefficiency underneath. Bruce Lee understood this early. He saw that force does not create lasting advantage because it works against the natural intelligence of the body. When someone forces action, they are not fully cooperating with the moment. They rush decisions before the situation has revealed itself. Muscles contract prematurely, preparing for threats that may never arrive. Breathing becomes shallow. Awareness narrows to a single goal instead of remaining open to changing conditions. This narrowing reduces sensitivity, which is essential for precise movement and timing. Alignment works in the opposite way. Alignment means the mind, body, and moment are moving together instead of pulling against one another. There is no internal argument about what should happen. There is no urgency to impose control. Attention stays open and responsive. Because of this openness, energy remains concentrated instead of scattered. Bruce Lee discovered that when alignment is present, action does not need to be forced. It arrives naturally. Decisions emerge from awareness rather than pressure. Timing becomes accurate because it is guided by perception, not anxiety. Movement feels exact, not aggressive. Power is delivered without strain because nothing inside the system is blocking it. Force often creates speed that is rushed. Alignment creates speed that is precise. There is a difference. Rushed speed overshoots the moment. Precise speed arrives exactly when needed. Bruce Lee's responses appeared fast, not because he hurried, but because nothing delayed him internally. There was no hesitation caused by doubt, and no excess motion caused by tension. This is why his actions carried such weight. Weight does not come from effort alone, it comes from coherence. When every part of the system is unified, even small movements have impact. Bruce Lee did not push through moments. Pushing implies resistance. Instead, he entered moments fully. He allowed the situation to guide the response rather than trying to dominate it. Entering a moment requires trust. Trust that awareness is sufficient. Trust that the body knows how to move when the mind is clear. This trust eliminated unnecessary preparation. He did not rehearse outcomes or cling to fixed plans. He stayed receptive. That receptivity allowed him to adapt instantly without losing balance. Opponents felt this difference immediately. They expected tension and met calm. They expected resistance and met fluidity. They expected force and met clarity. This created discomfort. When someone relies on force, they look for something solid to push against. Alignment offers nothing rigid. It absorbs pressure and redirects it without effort. Clarity is difficult to confront because it exposes inefficiency. When someone is tense, they can blame intensity for mistakes. When someone is clear, mistakes stand out sharply. Bruce Lee's clarity forced opponents to face their own tension. The contrast was unsettling. Their movements felt heavy. His felt light. Their timing felt rushed. His felt exact. Force also burns energy quickly. Alignment conserves it. By staying aligned, Bruce Lee preserved both physical and mental resources. While others fatigued themselves through strain, he remained steady. This endurance was not built on toughness, but on efficiency. Efficiency always outlasts brute effort. Another advantage of alignment is adaptability. Force locks a person into a direction. Alignment keeps options open. When circumstances changed, Bruce Lee changed with them seamlessly. There was no need to stop, reset, or recover. Adjustment happened in real time. This made him unpredictable without being chaotic. Most people are taught to push harder when something resists them. Bruce Lee learned to listen instead. Resistance became information. Instead of fighting it, he adjusted. This reduced conflict and increased effectiveness. The more aligned he became, the less effort he needed to apply. This principle applies far beyond physical movement. In any high-pressure situation, forcing a result increases error. Alignment increases accuracy. Whether in decision-making, conversation, or competition, clarity outperforms aggression every time. Bruce Lee's genius was recognizing this and embodying it completely. Alignment beats force because force divides energy, while alignment unifies it. Force relies on tension, while alignment relies on awareness. Force demands effort, while alignment allows action to emerge. Bruce Lee's power came from this understanding. His strength was not something he applied. It was something that appeared naturally when nothing stood in its way. That is why alignment always wins. When nothing inside resists, everything outside becomes easier to handle. In moments of confrontation, most people depend on pressure as their primary weapon. They believe that if they can increase speed, intensity, and unpredictability, they will gain the upper hand. They rush the situation. They provoke emotional reactions. They attempt to overwhelm the senses and force mistakes through chaos. This strategy often works, but only under one condition. The other person must react. Reaction is the key weakness these tactics exploit. When someone reacts emotionally, their attention fractures. They rush decisions, they abandon timing, they sacrifice clarity for urgency. Pressure feeds on reaction, growing stronger the more the other person resists it. Bruce Lee did not give pressure what it needed to survive. Because he remained aligned with the moment, pressure had nowhere to attach itself. It could not rush him because he was not chasing outcomes. It could not provoke him because his emotions were not driving his behavior. It could not confuse him because his awareness stayed open rather than narrowing. This created a reversal that most opponents were unprepared for. The more others tried to disrupt him, the more stable he became. Their intensity increased, but his internal condition remained unchanged. This imbalance was deeply unsettling. They expected escalation and received calm. They expected reaction and encountered clarity. Their usual tools no longer worked. Pressure normally compresses attention. In Bruce Lee's case, it sharpened it. While others tightened under stress, his perception widened. He noticed details others missed because they were busy managing their own emotional responses. He saw timing clearly because he was not rushing toward it. This reversal created confusion. Confusion is one of the most dangerous states in confrontation. When a person becomes confused, they lose trust in their own instincts. They hesitate, not because they lack ability, but because they no longer feel certain. That uncertainty breaks rhythm, and rhythm is essential for confident action. Opponents began to second-guess themselves. They wondered why their speed was not forcing mistakes. They questioned why their aggression was not creating fear. They tried harder, moved faster, and pushed more forcefully, but nothing changed on the other side. This effort without effect drained them mentally. Confusion leads naturally to hesitation. Hesitation may appear small, but it is decisive. A fraction of doubt delays action just enough to disrupt timing. A moment of uncertainty causes overcorrection or undercommitment. These subtle errors compound quickly. Bruce Lee did not need to create openings aggressively. Confusion created them for him. Hesitation widened gaps. Misjudgments exposed imbalance. What others experienced as bad luck was actually the result of internal disorder. What made this especially powerful was how quietly it happened. There was no dramatic breakdown, no obvious failure, just a slow unraveling of confidence. The opponent felt themselves slipping without knowing why. That loss of understanding made recovery even harder. Bruce Lee's stability acted like a mirror. As others lost balance, his calm reflected their instability back at them. The contrast became impossible to ignore. Their movements felt rushed. His felt grounded. Their breathing shortened. His remained steady. Their thoughts scattered. His stayed focused. This difference decided outcomes before they were visible. By the time a mistake appeared externally, it had already formed internally. Bruce Lee simply responded to what was revealed. Importantly, he did not exploit confusion maliciously. He did not provoke it deliberately. He allowed it to arise naturally by refusing to participate in chaos. His alignment created an environment where pressure collapsed under its own weight. Most people assume that winning requires applying more force. Bruce Lee showed that refusing to be disturbed can be far more effective. When pressure meets resistance, it escalates. When pressure meets clarity, it dissolves. Mistakes decide outcomes quietly. They rarely announce themselves. They slip in unnoticed through hesitation, misjudgment, and loss of rhythm. Bruce Lee understood this. By staying aligned, he did not need to dominate loudly. He allowed others to defeat themselves. This is how many lost before realizing it. They were not outmatched physically at first. They were outmatched internally, and by the time they understood what was happening, the opportunity to recover had already passed. Bruce Lee did not rush victory. He allowed imbalance to appear, and when it did, the result was inevitable. The principle Bruce Lee lived by was never limited to combat or physical confrontation. Fighting was only one environment where pressure made things visible. In truth, pressure exists everywhere during disagreements, important decisions, competition, leadership, failure, uncertainty, and moments where outcomes matter deeply. Wherever pressure appears, the same internal mechanics are at work. Bruce Lee understood that pressure itself is not the problem. The real problem is how people respond to it internally. Most people tighten when pressure appears. Their thinking becomes narrow. Their emotions rush ahead of the situation. They try to regain control by forcing outcomes. In doing so, they lose awareness of what is actually happening. Alignment changes this completely. In conflict, alignment allows perspective to remain intact. When emotions rise during arguments or disagreements, many people feel compelled to defend themselves immediately. They interrupt, escalate, or attempt to dominate the conversation. This reaction feels protective, but it often makes the situation worse. Alignment allows a person to remain grounded. Instead of reacting to tone, words, or assumptions, they stay connected to the reality of the moment. This perspective prevents misunderstandings from multiplying and keeps communication clear. In competition, alignment reveals opportunities that others miss. Competitive environments reward speed and decisiveness, but speed without clarity creates errors. When someone is internally aligned, they do not rush blindly. They observe patterns. They sense timing. They notice subtle shifts that signal openings. While others fixate on winning, the aligned person stays attentive to conditions. This attentiveness turns complexity into advantage. In everyday life, alignment saves enormous amounts of energy. Much of human exhaustion does not come from effort itself, but from resisting what is already happening. People argue with reality internally. They wish circumstances were different. They replay the past or worry about the future. This mental resistance drains energy continuously. Alignment ends this struggle. When a person accepts the present moment fully, energy is no longer wasted on inner conflict. That energy becomes available for meaningful action. Bruce Lee recognized that chasing control creates tension. Control implies fear of uncertainty. The more someone tries to control everything, the more fragile they become when things change. Alignment works differently. It does not try to dominate reality. It moves with it. By staying aligned, Bruce Lee remained adaptable. When conditions shifted, he shifted with them without panic or delay. This approach also reshapes decision-making. When a person is aligned, decisions are not rushed or delayed unnecessarily. They arise from clarity rather than pressure. The mind is not cluttered with competing impulses. As a result, choices feel grounded and timely. This quality is invaluable in leadership, where decisions affect others and uncertainty is constant. Alignment also builds resilience. When someone resists reality, setbacks feel personal and overwhelming. When someone stays aligned, setbacks become information. They are processed without emotional collapse. This allows learning instead of discouragement. Bruce Lee treated challenges as feedback rather than threats. This mindset allowed continuous refinement rather than stagnation. Another overlooked benefit of alignment is emotional stability. Emotional control does not mean suppression. It means understanding emotions without being ruled by them. Alignment creates space between feeling and action. This space allows wise responses instead of impulsive reactions. Over time, this builds trust from others and from oneself. Bruce Lee did not seek to dominate situations by force. He focused on refining his internal condition. As his alignment deepened, control appeared naturally. He did not need to chase it. Control emerged as a byproduct of clarity, presence, and adaptability. This is the deeper lesson most people miss. Power does not come from tightening your grip on the world. It comes from loosening internal resistance. When resistance disappears, awareness expands. When awareness expands, options multiply. And when options multiply, control no longer needs to be forced. The principle Bruce Lee embodied is timeless. Wherever pressure exists, alignment creates advantage. Whether in conflict, competition, or everyday life, the person who stays aligned, moves with precision, wastes less energy, and responds effectively. Control follows them quietly, not because they demand it, but because nothing inside them interferes with it. Bruce Lee's real advantage was never about overpowering situations or forcing outcomes. It came from the way he positioned himself internally before anything unfolded. By staying aligned, he removed the hidden friction that slows most people down. Pressure no longer dictated his actions. Circumstances no longer pulled him off balance. He moved from clarity, not reaction. What makes this lesson enduring is its simplicity. Alignment does not require more effort, only more awareness. When the mind stops resisting the present moment, energy gathers instead of scattering. Decisions become cleaner. Actions become decisive. Control appears quietly without being chased. Bruce Lee showed that the strongest position in any situation is not dominance over others, but unity within oneself. When nothing inside you is fighting the moment has very little power over you. And from that place, strength stops being something you apply, it becomes something you naturally embody. That is the deeper truth behind his legacy. Not force, no noise, not aggression. Alignment.